Welcome to Soulbirth here on Edge Radio Australia. Look at the cast we have today. What can I say? We have a very special guest, and I invert the comments. I'll use English here. Commas with special. It is, of course, Martine. Lovely to see you.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, it's great to be here. This is going to be a really interesting conversation.
Hey, don't get too excited. We've got the star of the show over here.
Oh,
Come on,
we
geez,
do.
don't talk it up too much. Hey, lovely to see you, Faye, always.
Thanks, Aaron. I'd like to say good afternoon.
It's almost.
It's been a really good start to the
We're just
show.
cruising in slowly,
I
right?
know.
Okay, don't peak the day out too much, right?
No. Well, it's been a bit divine, really, because of everything's been happening this morning. We ended up with a beautiful guest who's come in who's perfect.
It's all exactly.
This is
I
my
planned
jam.
this.
This is
Did you
your
see how
jam.
well I planned it?
Yeah, you're genius.
I just exceptional work. I'll
Love the
tell
way
you
the
right now.
universe works.
Mhm.
So, what is today's show all about?
Well, because yesterday was the 7th of the 7th. So, 7th day of the 7th month.
Yes.
And the number 7 is really important. So, because it's like this magical number. I've always been, really connected with the number 7.
Yep.
And it's said to be like the quantum bridge between spirit and earth. And so much magic happens.
Is that why people find the number lucky?
Probably, yeah.
I think
Yes,
everyone
some
will
people do.
resonate with a certain number that is
Yeah.
about their soul purpose, I think. Yeah.
okay.
So
Yeah,
in
and-
numerology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, okay.
this is
No.
why I love this. This
I
is my
know,
jam.
which is
I get numbers that
perfect.
pop up in my life all the time.
That's the universe
Absolutely.
going, wake up, Mr. Boy.
Yeah. Because if you follow numerology, every
So
number
subtle.
has a significance. You wanted the excuse to do that, didn't you, for so long?
So,
Work, wifey and all.
Yes. Yes.
well, let's go with that. So, okay, well, we won't just zone in on number 7. So, what with
Yeah.
numbers? Let's get further deep into it.
Well, so numerology is like a whole area of study. Like my mum is an astrologer, and she is right into numerology as well. So
Okay.
what I know is only from what I've learned and absorbed from my mother, because
Right.
she's amazing at all of this. And then, of course, because I move around in spiritual groups, everybody's into the numbers, and I really notice numbers like when they pop up, on your phone or on car number plates and things. It's like, oh, what does that mean? And it's always so significant about what's going on in life at the time.
Yeah, okay.
But number 7 has always been a big one because we have the 7-year cycles as well. So we come into this world, and when we're first born, and then like every 7 years is a really significant shift. So
Now, weird question. I've heard, and of course, my medical knowledge
Allegedly.
is very, very extensive, as we all know, right? But apparently, every cell in our body regenerates within 7 years. So, yeah, every 7 years, you've got new stuff. Now, two things one thing I really don't understand about that is, okay, why do I not look like I'm, still a teenager? Because if it's all new, it's all been recycled.
Because when you
Like one.
inhibit that regeneration process by abusing the body in lots of different ways,
I would
Mr.
never
Malloy,
do
I
such a
think
thing,
that's
no.
where we
Exactly.
inhibit that process of
Health first
regeneration.
all the way, right? Come on.
Absolutely.
I've heard.
Yes, you've heard that story. But yeah, but if that's the case, right, then okay, every 7 years, why have I still got a tattoo on my arm? You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
if you're rejuvenating and you're refreshing and all that.
yeah, all the cells are moving. I get what you're saying, yeah, but I don't know. That's
I don't know.
quite
I
a
like to throw you a curly one.
You
Yeah,
do,
why
you
not?
do.
Well, I think that would come back to the telomeres. Like there are telomeres at the end of our DNA strands.
Right.
Oh, we're getting technical here.
We
Have
are,
been
we are.
modified, so they've been shortened. So regeneration was possible previously before our DNA was modified, and so that they do know now that that's why this junk DNA is not junk DNA. It's DNA that was spliced or discombobulated because
Right.
of frequency and
Well,
impairing our DNA, so that we can't do that.
I'm confused. These are big words.
dear.
Okay, I'm not ready for this. Today, I'm
Especially
definitely
this
not
early
ready
in the
with this.
morning.
Exactly
Coming
right.
from a blonde. It's like, oh, wait a minute.
All right, I'll sit here in absolute silence. You two have a chat, because let's face it, you know all about this, and I am completely at a loss.
Well, I thought it was really perfect because, being the 7th to the 7th portal, and it was a perfect time to talk about number 7, and then today is the 8th. But and then Martine happened to be here, and Martine is really into numerology as well. So
I
it's
am.
like, oh my gosh, it's so perfect because
So, yeah, the number 7 itself is actually about having to do the journey. So if you talk about soul path numbers,
Yep.
which means that you can't bypass spiritually or through just a mental process, you actually have to physically embody the journey. So those
Okay.
were the life path number 7. This number 7 is that you must do the journey, which is actually what you've said about like joining the heaven and the earth realm, where you actually have to physically embody and go through that process. So
All right, you've got to
and-
live it.
Yeah, you
okay.
got to do the hard yards. And the one thing that was really interesting, and a lot of people, I'm going to read this out. This popped up on my feed yesterday, and I was like, this nailed it. And it's the moon meets Antares. So the moon, as it goes through the phases of waxing and waning moon cycles and full new moon. So in its moon cycle yesterday during the 7-7, what they call portal energy, was that it was activated in Antares, and Antares is a star that's part of the constellation of Scorpio.
Okay.
So if anyone knows about
always Scorpios.
Scorpio is the representation of death and rebirth, because they say that the venom actually has regenerative processes, but it can also kill you. So it's very symbolic. So in that process is a death and rebirth of a big portion of what our cycle has been. And so I have heard from many, including I do my own readings, of course. I have seen that the death and rebirth card, which is Scorpio, has been coming out nonstop. So it talks about that conjunction here of the moon on the 7-7 portal in Antares or Scorpio. It was about the moon drawing extremely close to the heart of Scorpio. This is going to be a very dramatic moon star conjunction, which is also out dredging up. It will pull up and draw up all that stagnant, ugly, unresolved yuck that we don't like to really deal with.
I love the fact you've actually cut this down to the words I can understand.
I know,
You know, dredging up the yuck. Thank you so much for that.
So it's all of those unresolved traumas or issues that are coming back around as well. So we're coming back into a cycle where we're having to revisit, because we're in a lot of retrograde. So we're in retrograde mode here with Mercury and a whole bunch of planets.
So many planets in
so the fact that this is all conjunct between now and the Lionsgate portal, which is the 8-8 in August, this is a period here of a month where we've got massive changes planet-wide. They're expecting a lot of shifting energy, and everyone's feeling it. So the thing is that Scorpio is a water sign, and so it affects the water in our body. And so that's why a lot of people are very, very emotive, very emotional right now. And what's been suppressed, what hasn't been addressed, is just like, and there's a lot of volcanic activity that's symbolic of what's going on the planet that will affect us. So there is no separation of these energies. All I can say is take a few deep breaths.
Okay, so the 88 coming into it, so I'll ask Faye on this one. The 88 is not just two fat ladies.
I didn't even know about that reference. No.
Okay.
Aaron.
That's what they say.
No. It's the 7-7 portal or the 8-8 portal. Exactly. I mean, that's if you are going with this traditional Gregorian calendar, but of course, if we go back to the Julian calendar, it's a bit different, but
just to confuse you even more, Aaron.
Yeah, but it's more the conjunction of these energies.
Absolutely.
But who out there has not felt the changes? Like, I don't know about you, but most people I know have been going through major shifts in the last few months, and all coming to a head like now, because whatever hasn't been addressed is coming up now for to be worked through, to be healed and let go of. So we are moving through, and because it's the year of the snake as well in feng shui, so it's all change. Transformation.
This all sounds very like scary,
It's
snakes,
not scary.
It's not scary. It's intense.
And all that. My God,
Scorpio's intense. Snake energy is intense. Like so, snake and serpent energy is about transformation, but you've got to shed the old. It's the exact same thing. So we're talking about this conjunction right now is very reflective of this year cycle, as in Chinese astrology. So it's like doubling down.
All jokes aside, is that why the 88 pops up? Because the Chinese side of it? Because Chinese people, 88 is unbelievably lucky, right? And 888 and 8s.
Yeah, that's correct. Correct. Okay. But that's the number of balance through the power of infinity.
Okay. Yeah. Well, speaking of numbers, thank you very much for the comment from the Worldwide Business Network there. Worldwide Awake. I'm not awake right now, that's for sure. Now, it's, what is it? It is lucky number 17 there, because, hang on, that's your unit number, 117. There you go. You planned that. I can see that. Well done.
Oh, okay. That's weird, because I think I went to that kind of number this morning on my travels. I can't even tell you where I went for a meeting, but I'm pretty. Look, no way. Look, that's the address I went to this morning.
117.
Oh my gosh, it's like
it's
a
all
lottery
coming
draw.
together.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Bravo, people. We are aligning.
Exactly. What does this mean?
Oh,
These synchronicities. There's no.
We're working the energy is what that means. I can tell you
I
now when
know.
that starts happening.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
Same as earlier. We both
He's
looked
like,
at our clock.
I haven't even finished my coffee, let alone probably need a nip of something else right now.
this
Martine
is
and
not
I
strong
both
enough.
looked at our phone earlier too, and it was 11:11.
11:11.
No
That's
way.
the exact
The
same
angel
time.
numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, with numbers that follow you around, though.
What is the number that you're being
several
haunted
numbers.
by?
So, no, I'm not haunted at all. I'm quite comfy with it. But
Okay, good.
Number 96 follows me around.
Number 96.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a TV
It
show?
was a TV show, number 96, well before my time.
Oh, you're right.
Well before my time. And 28 follows me around.
Does it?
Yeah.
Interesting, because 9 and 6 are part of the components of the sacred numbers of geometry to do with Tesla, the 6369.
Okay.
So they are triangulation numbers, so 9 and 6. So if you add them up together, they'll always come. Anything with +9 will always reduce down to 9.
Right. And what's
So
significant
add
about 9?
anything to the number 9, and it will always come back to whatever that number was. It's very interesting. So 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus
She's
9.
looking
will-
confused
I'm
I'm
again.
doing
What?
the maths in my head. Can someone grab me a calculator?
So yeah, so basically if you add 8 and 9 together, it comes to 17. But if you add 1 and 7, it comes back to 8. So whatever you add to 9, it will always come back to that number.
Well, okay,
Because that's what's called a number most high.
okay, so but 9 and 6 would be 15.
9 is, and 15, you add the 1 and 5 together. So
6.
you always reduce it down to singular numbers.
Okay. So then you add the 1 and the 5.
And
6.
it's,
6.
which is what you added to 9.
Oh, John.
I think Aaron needs another coffee.
Yeah, I didn't make it strong enough.
This is hilarious.
Okay, what about 28 then?
Okay, so the number vibration. So 2 is about balance. So the need for balance.
Right.
He's like, oh wow, she's really going.
I'm glad I found you out there this morning, Martine.
Oh,
So
look,
2 is about balance.
we'll lock her out next time.
And
Oh,
8,
she's got her own key. Oh,
2 is about balance, and it's also about the masculine, feminine energy, because the two components that we mostly work with as embodiment.
okay.
And actually, the number 8 again is also about balance. So 2 is about the polarity. I don't use the word duality anymore. I feel like duality
Okay.
causes division,
Yeah.
whereas the polarity, it's a sliding scale. So it's looking at polarity of energy that you've got going on in your life
Yeah.
and then trying to balance it. So that's what the number 28 means. When you add those two numbers together, it's
10.
talking about, and you reduce that down to 1
Mm.
number,
It's the
and it's
beginning.
the number 1. So it's a whole new cycle you're coming into, which is great. You want to hear that, don't you?
But hang on, number 28 has chased me for, I'm going to say, at least minimum, like 40 years. So that's a long wait for a cycle.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
It's,
It pops up. I've lived at number 28 several
Oh,
times.
have you? Wow.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
in feng shui, the numbers 2 and 8 both represent earth. So they're both very earthy numbers.
Okay.
Grounding.
grounding,
Isn't that funny?
which again is about balance.
This is, yep.
And here's a stupid thing. This might mean absolutely
No.
nothing at all. But 2 number 28s that I lived at, once I got in a plane, now this is really, okay, it's a stretch, but okay, this is a very unusual situation in my life, right? I got in a plane, flying off, boom, and as I got into the air, you know how you kind of look down and go, oh, yeah, I wonder if I can see my house. Well, guess what? I could see my house, number 28, okay, because luckily it was on a big property, so I could see it quite clearly. And as the plane turned around and actually headed up, I saw my other house.
Which was 28 as well.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So it's like boom, boom.
I mean, what's the
Wow.
chance of seeing both your houses in
Wow,
that?
amazing.
I know it's
And I
a bit
guess
bizarre.
a
There you go.
repeat of that pattern, when you've had it happen, when it's going on more than one time, it's actually showing you part of what your life purpose and mission is, because
Right.
it's not just showing you for a period of time in your life where you're going through a certain cycle, but it's been a repeat cycle, which means that in your life,
Mhm.
it's to sit down and do your numerology of your birth chart.
Yep.
So you add up your date of birth, the
Yep.
month, and your year.
Okay.
And then it comes down to what your life path number is. And so with that, what it would probably be is that you would be somehow connected to those numbers ongoing through your different life cycles. So the fact that it's sort of getting in your face again might be that you are coming into another cycle
Mm.
and
Beginning.
that, yeah. That's what it's about.
We're
Okay.
always changing, though. We're always going into new cycles
Yeah,
anyway.
and
because
shifting it
every
up. It never
day-
stays the same. You're always shifting it up.
Yeah, and every day we have an opportunity to renew ourselves.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts about what's on the screen right now?
Oh, yeah,
there,
because
so?
is it a lucky number? So 117, is it a lucky number? Well, 117 adds up to a 9, so it's what 9 represents. To me, too, I never think of numbers as lucky or unlucky because
Is the word?
Yeah.
What's
and
the
what
purpose for you?
significance is for you? Yeah, how it relates to you. Because like people say, like in feng shui terms, the number 13 is unlucky in feng shui because it's a 4 and it means death. But I've never attached that to it. And number 13 to me, I think is actually quite lucky.
Yeah,
My
when you
parents
go
give it
back
number 13.
Yeah.
And they've always, always seen it as a lucky number, not an unlucky number. So it depends on the significance you give to it, as with everything in life.
That's what I was about to say.
Relationship
For
to
everything
it.
in life,
Yeah,
you put the significance on it.
Exactly.
Like before, you're talking about star signs, and people put so much weight on star signs. And I used to actually think it was complete rubbish. Really did. I thought, no. That when your parents had sex has absolutely nothing to do with your personality. Come on. But my word, I seem to drag particular star signs into my life.
Did you ask your parents?
What? No, I didn't ask my parents.
Time. How long did it
Goodness me.
No, but I can do the maths, right? Okay.
We're about soul birth, not soul
Exactly.
conception.
Well, sometimes.
Oh, we do cover that sometimes.
right.
Oh, right, okay.
Aaron always adds a new little slant to
It's when I play the Barry
everything.
White and away we go, right?
So we have to add the man's perspective on this show all the time. So
Well, I hadn't turned into a car or racing reference yet,
not
so we're
yet,
doing all
but
right.
you just mentioned
It
it,
will,
so
yeah,
there you go.
absolutely.
Vroom, vroom.
Yeah, true. All right.
It's more like a comedy show today.
Ah.
We usually do that.
Exactly.
Well, shall we pull back onto target here?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
Right, Faye.
Why would we do that, Aaron? Why would we do that?
Why start now? Why start now?
Exactly. Yeah, it was actually about number 7 today.
Okay, well, let's get back to that number
So
then.
maybe that's what it should be about. Like, just as we're discussing, we actually, I don't think we've deviated. I think we've actually
No.
delved into it just so it's a more personal perspective.
Exactly. And we need to get a rounded perspective of everything too.
Yeah, okay.
And exactly what
numerology
you've
actually is.
said with the
Yeah.
28, that's been a repeat pattern for
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
That's saying that is connected to your soul path. So if you do look at that, you would
Yep.
have to say that really in your life, keeping balance and keeping grounded with what you do has been an ongoing repeat pattern. Just like it is for me. I know what my numbers are.
Yep.
And for me, it's very similar. It's about maintaining balance because my life is always very, very busy.
And you're always juggling, which is kind of a balanced thing, right? I guess.
Totally.
It is. It is.
So if you look at that and then you see the relationship that, okay, so it's like a nice reminder to pull it back to self, take responsibility for where you're at, reassessment, readjust, realign.
Could the balance bit be actually literal though? Like, trying to keep your balance physically?
Well, it will throw
Could be.
it off balance as well. Wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say if people get really emotionally and mentally imbalanced that they will throw themselves out physically? That's
Yeah,
how it
exactly.
represents itself, right?
I think all of life is a juggling act. It's about
I
trying
think
to bring
so.
ourselves back into
Yeah.
balance because we experience the extremes of one thing and another, but it's all about trying to bring it back into balance. Same with yin and yang, It's, whether we have too much of yin and not enough of yang, then, we'll be off balance and vice versa. So all of
Absolutely.
life and everything we do is all about bringing the balance back. So,
Okay. Why are you looking at me like that? I think, look,
I'm not looking at you any particular way.
I'm reading it that way.
Paranoia.
Paranoid. Okay, no, I'm going to give you a very literal sense, okay? And I'll deep dive into something a bit personal here, right? We've discussed this before. I was in a very, very, very bad car accident as a baby, right? And I had the equilibrium part of my brain was damaged, right? Excuse me. So I had to work really, really hard growing up to achieve proper balance because I had balance issues because of it. So that's another reason why I'm very, very, very proud of my racing career. Because obviously, how the hell do you overcome?
Yeah,
something
that's
like that?
spectacular.
Yeah.
Actually, that's well done.
I had to spend many years sorting that out because I could walk uphill, I could walk downhill, but if it was a cross, my brain couldn't quite sort of survive. I was in a coma for a month. It wasn't a little accident.
That's full on.
Yeah.
It's crazy,
so
isn't it?
just wonder if that's the
Start
search
life.
for balance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Never know.
I know. Well,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy because he came out racing.
I did.
Had
I was
very quick
blue. I was
birth and- quick
4
birth.
minutes in the
Oh, well,
hospital.
that
Mum.
was okay. So that in itself, the fact that you came out, okay, and that's what we do have in common. I had an extraordinarily fast birth,
Right.
so very similar. Came out too fast. My mum said that she this is her story, is that basically she sneezed and I was out.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
And
Wow.
I was very, very small. I was a tiny baby. I was 4 3/4 pounds.
Whoa.
So I was
Wow.
incredibly small, and even though I was full term, I'm sure back in those days they liked to smoke a lot. And everyone's like, "Oh, smoking's fine." It's like,
Oh,
no,
no.
we know now what the science
course we
says. But
do.
anyway, let's move
Well,
on from
women
that.
used to sometimes smoke so they'd have a smaller baby because it was going to be an easier birth.
Oh no.
There you go. You've never heard
Let's
that?
move
Yes,
along
I
because
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was a small baby, and that's exactly what was said. And I did have to be kept in the humidity crib for
really?
quite some time because they were concerned that, but everything was fine. Everything was fine. Can't you tell everything was fine, Mr. Malloy?
Sure. Yes.
No problems here at all.
But I don't think when you birth, I don't think you can judge the rest of your life on that. I mean, let's face it. When I was born, I was tall and thin. That hasn't worked out well. So there you go.
Oh my goodness. So
You're
everybody's
still
birth
tall.
is different. How
We're
we
still tall.
yeah.
I don't know about that.
Tells
But there you go.
tall tales.
Tall stories.
Oh,
Anyway, so we all
okay.
have a very different soul, entrance to the world, and our soul journey is very different.
100%,
But
right?
the
Imprinted.
energy of numbers, though, is really interesting because we still all sort of have our same ebb and flow through the 7-year cycles because all of us, well, as long as we keep, growing,
Yep.
the first 7 years is all about being in our body and exploring the world around us and actually, learning by discovering and copying our parents and other people around us.
Yeah.
So, that's why young children, it's really important that they just get to play,
Yes.
and just be around watching their mother and their father
Yeah.
and what they're doing.
And not a
being around.
tablet.
No,
Not a
that's
tablet.
right, exactly. So they're still developing their, place in the world and who they are. Although learning who they actually are actually comes in the next 7-year cycles, from 7 to 14, as they then start to go, who am I?
Development of ego.
Oh, look,
Yeah, exactly. Very
development of
different
ego.
phase.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. So the first 7 years from when you look at the hierarchy of needs with Maslow's hierarchy, you would know all of this stuff inside and out. So I'm sure it's Finland that has actually stopped sending children to school until they're 7. And that's because they comprehend that a child's soul and etheric is completely immersed in their mothers and parents.
Exactly.
And
Very
so
similar to Steiner philosophy
Exactly.
as well.
Actually, on that front, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
getting away
talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, really.
We did. Yeah.
Well,
we talked about it.
and I don't want to get away from the number 7 on this
No.
one, but okay. But that's really interesting because in Finland they have a far more balanced way of raising children. Right? It's
they do.
very, very different there, but with the man and the woman both heavily involved.
Heavily.
So isn't that really cool that they've actually gone and thought,
Balance.
yeah,
That's
they've
great.
looked at it at a more scientific level and go, okay, there's a reason why this should happen.
Scientific and
Exactly.
spirituality. They've
Yeah, that's
had a
probably more
very,
accurate,
very,
yeah.
very clever blending of that energy, which again brings balance. Whereas here, as soon as they're babies, we're just trying to ship them off
Throw them
somewhere
daycare,
else.
throw them
Exactly.
daycare, throw them daycare.
Yeah.
I hate that.
I know, and a lot of anthroposophy is also based on that because it's the whole, first 7-year
Development.
cycle.
That's
which
correct.
is, I bought another book in.
You got a
to
book?
show-
Yay.
Because this is one of my favourite books when my kids were growing up. It's called
Right.
The Incarnating
Oh,
Child
yes.
by Joan Salter. Now it's all based on Steiner philosophy.
Yeah.
Is it really?
But it's all about that first 7 years of the baby, of the soul incarnating, and how it's really important to allow that soul to experience the world around them. And why we shouldn't be intellectualizing kids before the age of 7 because they're not in their mind, they're in their body. And so, it's very much about learning through play.
So yeah, I mean, the first 7 years is just so critical to the child's development. Who they become.
Absolutely.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
The
And then-
foundational years
Yeah.
that imprinting happens the most
Yeah,
on
exactly.
every level.
And this other book that she also wrote, Mothering with Soul, it's
Right.
another book, a follow-on kind of. So it's all about how our parenting, but mothering in particular, because the mother is, they also talk about, the importance of the mother being
Yeah.
at home to actually be there, to be the person, the role
This is something
model
we've
for the
screwed
child.
up so badly in
No,
society.
so life has changed quite a bit, but I think there's a big move back to it now because we're realizing that
Thoroughly agree.
the children need their parents there, and
Yeah.
a lot of people are moving back to homeschooling and unlearning.
Yes.
And your mum should be nurturing, right? Okay, it's as simple as that. And should be given the opportunity to, not having to race back to work. It's such a shame. We're all in so much debt now. Debt. That everybody runs off to work and makes that the priority. Well, your kids are your priority.
Absolutely.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, growing up in, friends' houses and all, they were good old 3x1 bedroom, okay? And nice, simple sort of homes.
Yeah.
But guess what? They were homes. And
Yeah, they were
They had,
homes.
they
Yeah.
had families who actually spent time together, ate at the dinner table together,
Yeah.
talked with each other, actually interacted with each other.
Yeah.
Gee, I'd love to come back to
I
that.
know. And we had smaller
Mm.
houses but bigger yards, so we got
Yes.
to be outside playing in our yard
So
and getting
true.
dirty, and having the chooks in the backyard,
Yeah.
and the veggie garden, and building cubbies in the
Self-sufficiency.
trees and on the top of the shed and all that. I loved
Oh.
my childhood.
Absolutely.
And it comes back to how we created our own communities instead of now it's prescribed and now it's like set out for us how it should be. Again, it's all part of the system, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So now you're right, there is a big push to come back to self-organized communities and to have like even communities that are homeschooling based, but group of mothers and parents, not just mums as well, but dads come in and they collaborate and they share all of that experience, which is traditionally how villages run.
Exactly.
And so you would come back to the village. Yeah.
Yeah, and so moving back to that allows us more to honour those 7-year cycles, because then we can actually have the village raising the child and being able to give those experiences to the young child. And then as they move through into the next phase and they're learning about themselves and the world around them, or actually, got mentors there that can actually show them, like the dads, to show them how to build and to hunt or do all the things.
Even play. Like
exactly,
they've shown roughhousing, with your dad growing up, roughhousing, how incredibly important to development is.
Totally.
Okay, and they've taken that pretty much out. And obviously, everyone knows my feelings about the removal of fathers from houses and homes.
Makes me very angry.
Yeah, and if you really genuinely care about your kids, it should make you angry. But it's also, literally on a development level, kids need to have these things, and whether mum does it or dad does it, it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that I was more of that role model for my daughter.
Yeah.
So we did used to kind of like rough play to a point, but like wrestle. So, and what it was that she would understand what her body capacity was.
Yeah,
and I had
consequences.
And not just that,
and
but
boundaries.
Like boundaries.
Yes.
It's like, it's like you push past your boundary or someone's pushed past yours.
Yeah.
And not just that, but actually to protect yourself. So I brought up with protective measures. It's like, no, you need to push me back. And it's like you have the right to stand up for yourself. And unless you start to push that and use your physical body it's like a cellular memory, isn't it? So it's like if someone's going past your boundary line or harassing you, it's like just stop. And if they don't, then it's like I will physically have to use that to stop you. And I'm glad I did, because at one point someone tried to abduct her off the side of the road and she already had that in her body memory, took off.
Great example of it, right?
Yeah.
It is, absolutely.
So it was already in her body memory. And so I'm really grateful that even though I had a lot of criticism from people to say that, mum shouldn't be like rough house. I'm like, well, she didn't have a father in the household all the time.
Yep.
And the time that she did have exposure with her dad wasn't enough to ingrain that. So I was aware of that because I did study Maslow's hierarchy. Yeah. And so that's it. So I did. Yeah. And I encouraged her from a young child and baby. It's like you embody what you feel like you need. Like we laugh at it now. I said, we've got all these people that want to be rabbits and whatever else they want to identify as. And then I say, you know what that is? That shows me they never did that role playing as a child. I'm telling you now, because I let my daughter be painted head to toe as a tiger, and the whole day instead of talking, she would be like, or 2 rahs for yes, or 3 yas for, and I'd be like, why not? It's like she got to experience that.
Yeah, well, when they become a teenager, they don't feeling that they've missed out on that sort of stuff.
Well, that's right. She's a grown woman now. She's like, I don't really need to be a tiger anymore or identify as that.
Yeah.
You don't need the kitty litter?
No. But that's the other important thing too, because we haven't got these coming of age things anymore, whereas, and that's the age of 14. See, that's the other 7-year cycle. When you hit that, that's the coming of age. And this is where back in the other, early days when they were living in villages and what have you, is that's the time when the woman, would take her daughter and teach her all about, the coming of age ceremonies, when you become, starting to periods and turning into a woman. So, what to look for, and they would take them through that. And we still have ceremonies now to try and bring that back in. Yeah. And boys, that was the time their dads took them out in the bush and did all their, their what do you call them? Sorry,
men's business.
Men's
business.
Secret men's business. Well, I've forgotten it. I was never privy to it. But no, when they would go on their, what do you call it? I'm going blank all of a sudden.
That's right.
When you go out to search for yourself in the woods, you learn
like a bit of a walkabout.
Survive, learn survival skills and to find yourself.
Yep.
And so that was the age of 14.
Mhm.
And then you would come back to the village a different person. And that was just stepping into, you know, the ego self and the really learning to become
stepping
an
into early
adult.
parts of manhood, really.
It was.
Yeah.
So for that 14 to 21, that
Yep.
7-year cycle is all about that. Is that finding who you are in the world.
Mhm.
That's so true. A friend sent me, excuse me, a friend sent me a picture of who I used to work with, of myself and her when I was 17. Okay. And I just looked at myself, oh my God, you know, it's so embarrassing when you see a picture of yourself there. And where I'm going on this is I'm 17 years old. Okay. And I thought I knew it all, you know.
Sure.
I was driving around like a lunatic. I was doing this, I was doing that. I was living life. I'm into the nightclubs. I'm living life, right? I looked at that picture the other day. I'm a child. I'm an absolute child. Okay.
But you don't feel like it at the time. You feel like you're an
No.
adult. Like, oh, I'm really old now. Like, I'm really.
Yeah. Well, I'm in that period. I'm in that, 14 to 21 period where I'm actually like really discovering who I am as a man,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you got your L plates on, but yeah, isn't it funny? It's true. It's kind of how you
Really?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a cool time. But
Exactly.
to break it all into 7 is a very interesting sort of
Yeah.
break. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to reflect, and like anybody who's listening, just reflecting on which 7-year cycle you're in life at the moment too.
I feel like
Because
I'm
then
in
it's
cycle 10.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Not yet.
No.
But, the 21 to 28 cycle is again, you're becoming more of an adult, and it's quite often, especially with guys, because guys, we all know is slower to develop than females. So females tend to be.
He did admit that. I
coming
heard
into
that very
true.
He did
clearly.
admit that. We've got
It's
that on
true.
camera. But guys tend to come into their own when they're about 28, because that's the end of that.
Really? I
cycle.
was going to say
Then you have
about
another one.
52, but that's fine. 28. Let's go to
Different
28,
layers
shall we?
of-
Oh, dear.
Yes, but I noticed that myself with my sons and others that turning 28.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
Cycle, and for me, that's when I became a mother for the first time. Was 28.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
It's
a new
it's
cycle.
seen as the by the time you're 28, you're supposed to really embody what your spiritual value system is.
Okay.
And that's what you're talking about, especially
Exactly,
for
yeah.
males. Women can come into it usually a lot earlier
Earlier,
than
yeah.
males.
Okay. Yeah.
So you'll see that come in about 23, 24.
Okay.
And then what from my experience and what I've spoken to a lot, if you were already in a relationship, that's where that transition between 23, 24 to 28 is where I became very maternal.
Okay.
Like I could feel my biological system going, I am so mentally, emotionally, spiritually ready to have a baby.
It's into
Yeah.
overdrive.
It's like
Yeah,
nature
but it was
kicks in
really
and-
strong.
Yeah,
It
even
was
if
like
you weren't before
hardwired.
that.
No, it was like everything in me, because I felt very much like I was living very much my soul
Okay.
truth and
Wow.
being integral and spiritual. I'd started to really open that, and then it boom,
Yep.
28.
Well, 28. I think I was being a bit naughty at 28, to be absolutely honest with you. I was being very naughty.
I'm
at
going to say
28.
nothing.
No,
Being very
me
naughty.
either.
Being very naughty at 28.
Yeah, gosh.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it depends on your cycle of life,
Exactly.
right? Where you were and what kind of thing.
Exactly.
What I was going to bring up, the point is 7 years. Okay. Have you guys watched the 7 Up series?
7 Up.
No.
7 Up documentary. It's
No.
fascinating, right?
Is it?
So it really genuinely is. And I've watched, they're up to, I don't even know, about like 63 up or something. It's crazy, right?
Okay.
So
So,
it was-
is this about the 7-year cycles?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
So what they do
Interesting.
is it's fascinating. It's done in England. Anyway, they got a bunch of kids.
I have seen it,
Yeah,
yes.
from birth,
My mistake,
from all
yeah.
different social backgrounds, and
Right.
they interview them. Obviously, they give a bit of a roundup of where they are, where they come from at birth,
Mhm.
and then they interview them at 7, at
Mhm.
14, at 21,
Yeah.
at 28.
Oh, wow. Fascinating.
It is
It is
absolutely
really good,
fascinating.
actually. Yeah.
And I don't know, probably half of them stay till they're in their 40s, I guess.
Mhm.
But it's still, I don't know how far the guy who actually
They're up
started
to
it
now. Yeah.
obviously has passed away now, so someone's had to take over. But it is fascinating. It's the whole, and what I find really interesting is what you've just said as far as the cycles of life,
Mhm.
and also it is just I've never ever seen hereditary versus environment so clearly defined.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth getting it. I actually got it out. This is how long ago it was for me, anyway. I got it out my local Blockbuster once.
Oh,
On
really?
the old
Blockbuster video.
7 days, and
Remember videos?
I went hard on that. I
Have to open it up, make sure it's the right video cassette.
and bloody well
inside.
rewind it, okay? There'll be trouble. There will be trouble if you don't rewind. But yeah, it's just, but it's so, that's obviously why they chose that number, I guess. But what a fascinating way to look through life. But it is true. We do go through these cycles.
It is.
Absolutely. And like we were talking just before we came on and said that there is no way to really bypass this or circumnavigate this process.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what exactly the number 7 is. You've got to go through it.
Yeah,
You got to go through
We all have to go through it and sit with it and see where it is internally, what's going on.
So you want to talk about that a bit more, about where we're at just now, like with all the stuff that's happening, lined up with the 7-7 now, given that we're all actually having to clear out all this old karmic stuff as well at the moment. So there's a big upheaval and clearing out at the moment.
There is. So like planetary wise, the planet is going through their own cycle, and we as the inhabitants or parasites, whatever you want to call us. We could be symbiotic. We could be symbiotic, but sometimes I think that some of us are symbiotic and others are not so much. So I guess in that, we're going through a massive change where, again, there's the restoration of the sacred feminine energy. We've talked about this before, how a lot of the feminine energy was hijacked through the 60s and 70s coming into the age of Aquarius. They knew that.
Huge
so that's why, So that's why it was hijacked to as the feminine energy was rising, let's divert it to this way. So that instead of the feminine coming into her full power, which is what you're talking about, where they have the full realization that raising their children with certain values and teaching the females to step up into their true essence of who they are, that's where we came into, let's make sure that we have to have both parents out working, all of this kind of stuff. So it was degraded bit by bit by bit by bit.
No doubt about
people now, and what you're saying about people returning back to that, and I'm seeing a lot of younger people getting married and being in a committed relationships a lot younger and having children. And it's not in a way that is it's not deeply soulful, and that's what I'm profoundly sort of hit by. I'm seeing it, and it's not like these people are doing it without really having a great insight into who they're with, which is really interesting. It's not like we've been together, we've got knocked up and then we got married or anything. It was like, no, it's very mindful. And I'm like, wow, there's a whole different generation coming through is what I feel.
Interesting you say that. So there's a young fella, and I'm going to sneak his name in here, called Zephyr. Zephyr, who was somebody I met through all the COVID carry-on. Okay. Anyway, he just impressed the hell out of me. Came up with he had a group of his friends. They were from up north. I think it was Carnarvon or Geraldton. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Anyway, but a bunch of his mates, and they were 16 years old. Okay, and they'd made the trip. One was 17, had their license, and they came down. They wanted to be part of the rallies, wanted to be part of the marches, all of that. Great people. Anyway, I just so excited by this. The fact he's 21 now, right? And just 3 days ago, he got married, and very conscious about the way of finding someone with the same ethical standards and emotional standards as him. And like, it's a really, it's nice to see someone do, like, okay, for me, I got married young, right? Okay, because I slipped and fell, and then 9 months later I had a baby, right? There wasn't, I mean, I did love my wife and fiance at the time, right? But let's be very, very honest. Like, I didn't go, and there was no, great emotional connection. It was okay, she's pregnant, I have to do the right thing. I have to step up, right? So we didn't have that emotional connection. So it's really lovely, and we felt like we were much younger than sort of most people out there having babies at that time. So it's really nice to see people now taking in the younger ones, being conscious about it, really thinking about it, and trying to actually match up with somebody at a deeper level rather than a superficial one.
Exactly. When we remember who we are as a soul and why we're here, and it brings back so much more consciousness to our journey, and who we are choosing as our partner and why, because we have soul contracts that we are going to meet up with certain people that are going to be, this is what I believe, and that and we invite these souls in that are meant to be our children that we are going to bring. We're caretaking them, if you like. We're bringing them into this world, and so if we can conceive consciously, which is why I'm so much about conscious conception and peaceful pregnancy and sacred birth, so that our next generation can come in, fully conscious and loved and, being connected with who they are, then, we can have, a much more soulful life, and also to celebrate all these 7-year cycles, and just not even just 7-year cycles, but the spirituality of life, that the thread that runs through, that all these, tribal cultures already have, and we've taken that away from them.
Traditional value systems.
So it's bringing
too.
those back. Yeah, exactly.
agree.
Because when we live a soulful life like that, then all of this is like integral, and we're celebrated at every stage of life the way it's meant to be. And then, we can really fully live our life as to who we are.
Beautifully put.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Return back to natural cycles. I think you've actually nailed that, because I think that is the embodiment of where we're going, is where we're looking at nature and realizing that we've lost that connection, which is what I talk about a lot on my show, is like getting back to the connection with nature, back to the connection with soil, with plants, how we value that process instead of seeing it as just a convenience that we just go in, it's wrapped in plastic, and we think that that's good value for our bodies, yet it may be quite old. It doesn't have any nutritional value, so we're not nourishing ourselves anymore. We don't know actually truly how to nourish ourselves. And I think that's it. We're coming back to a system where we're becoming much more conscious and aware that we have not nourished ourselves, soul, mind, and body for quite some time. We allowed something else to think that that was doing it for us.
So when we follow the natural rhythms of life, get back in connection with the planets and the cycles of life, then
and how it's affecting us individually,
and how our food grows too, because the plants, everything that we eat, it grows in cycles as well. So when we come back to all of that, the natural cycles and using natural growing methods,
eat things when they're in season.
Healthy,
right? Okay. I mean, I bought avocados the other day. I don't think avocados are in season, because I'm telling you right now, these things are taking forever to ripen. And I thought about this. I thought, hang on, they're taking so long. Like, where have they been? Stuck in a warehouse? Have they been gassed? What? Okay, maybe I should only have avocados when they're in season. Tomatoes when they're in season.
Local suppliers.
Local suppliers, fresh stuff, real stuff. Get back to a far more authentic life than a convenience life. And I think that, we've so fallen for that. Oh, we need it, and we need it now. We need it all.
We do. I want it now.
There's a song in that.
Instant gratification. And I think that I heard something, this is probably going off a little bit off topic, but it kind of goes back to those foundation years of the first 7 years. And I have a number of people that are friends with psychologists, and they said they have never seen such an increase in narcissistic behavior and narcissism in general, having narcissistic personalities, as we're finding now. And I look at it as possibly a reflection of the fact that children that weren't given healthy boundaries but praised and didn't have discipline because they were part of a cycle. And, if parents both had to go off and work because the system made it that way, we gave our children off to these centres that are obviously the lid's being blown on this. So there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of disassociation emotionally because they didn't feel safe. And when you have disassociation or children that don't feel safe, they develop an alter ego, and there's all of this like really dysfunctional stuff. And I'm like, look at the pattern and you will see there is a correlation between the increase of this behavior. Absolutely. They're all saying that.
Look, participation awards and things like that all feeds towards narcissism. It does. Okay. Because if you don't have to try, if you don't know success, you don't know failure, right? You become entitled. And when you become entitled, and you become a narc. And I think so. That's certainly what people are being fed right now. And you're right, like society's changed so much. And people need to just slow the hell down and realise that this is not the way to treat each other.
It's all that divide and conquer, we've all been divided by design. And so we're seeing the repercussions of that now. So it's about coming back and actually saying, well, actually, that doesn't serve us, as a species.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
We need to come back together, create community, and start loving one another again, and actually being mindful of the way we live.
So true. Now, if you want more of that wonderful advice, where do you go, Faye?
Well, you can contact me through my website, soulbirth.com.au. And in the meantime, have a think about, which 7-year cycle are you in, and how is that reflected? What's playing out in your life right now, and how can you make an impact in this cycle of 7 between now and the 8th of the 8th portal?
8th to the 8th. So
Lionsgate portal.
Lionsgate portal on the 8th of the 8th. Okay. Let's see what comes up for you and reflect on it, and how does that sort of play out in your 7-year cycle. pretty powerful stuff. And know that whatever's going on is actually meant to be for us. It's happening for us, not to us. And it's actually there for us to clear it through and actually be aware of it. So it's all good, and everybody's going through the same stuff. And it's all
just be gentle with yourselves and others.
Nurture yourself.
Take a breath before you respond too.
Exactly.
Might be a good idea.
That's such smart advice. Exactly that. You know, like we so often we listen and we're preparing an answer. We're not actually genuinely listening. So be kind, take a pause, have a quick little think about it, and then make your response.
Yep.
And with that bombshell, we are out of here. Thanks very much for being part of Soulbirth here on Edge Radio Australia.
Thanks.